there anybody in this place you could vouch for to give me a ride home?
Fair lady, your chariot awaits.
In 2007, directors and friends Quentin Tarantino and Robert Rodriguez teamed up to make a double feature event at the theaters known as Grindhouse. Grindhouse was an homage to old American theaters that showed exploitation movies which were often marketed as double features. That is, 2 tickets for the price of 1. Rodriguez directed Planet Terror, and Tarantino made Death Proof, a slasher film about a deranged stunt driver who targets young women with his car. When Death Proof came out, as with all Tarantino films, it was praised for its technical work and car chase scenes, but criticized for its wordy dialogue and slow pace. As a result, the movie often gets overlooked or straight up banned when people talk about it. Of course, movies and entertainment are incredibly subjective and all reviews are matters of opinion, but in my opinion, you should give Death Proof another shot. Tarantino is a master of genre filmmaking, and Death Proof is a mesmerizingly fascinating piece of cinema history. It's somehow simultaneously a faithful representation of exploitation cinema of the 70s and 80s, as well as a complete subversion of the tropes those movies are known for. This is a movie that lures you in with its dialogue and visual style, building tension until the very last moment, making you believe you're watching one kind of movie, and then uses the rigid structure of a slasher film against you. Needless to say, this movie is gonna get spoiled, so if you wanna go into Death Proof without any prior information, you should abandon ship right now. Death Proof starts out as a celebration, homage, and recreation of B-movies, where we're introduced to a bunch of gorgeous, sassy women who talk about sex and are proud of their sexuality, only to be stalked and gruesomely murdered by a deranged killer. So far so B-movie, right? But the film is already setting us up in ways to realize that this is not your typical run-of-the-mill exploitation gore fest. And don't get me wrong, there's plenty of gore, but there's also a ton of nuance. Now, Tarantino characters are always larger than life, and realism is not one of their strong suits. They're very silly, overly talkative, love to talk in circles, and each character with a speaking part is somehow an absolute expert in storytelling.
See that pretty girl sitting by herself at the bar?
Who, the dirty hippie?
Yeah, she's not a hippie.
She might as well be a hippie.
Well, do you know what just happened to her?
No, but I know she's a skinny, fake blonde bitch.
Oh, I'm sorry. You were telling a story?
So we laugh about it and walk a little further, and Zoe starts fucking around. And damn, if she doesn't fall in the fucking ditch.
Nice.
But these women are a far cry from the typical scream queens and leading ladies that we've been saddled with in B-movies so far. Death Proof is a film that is clearly aware that the gender dynamics of these movies are problematic to their core. Exploitation cinema was always meant to titillate and gross you out. It's not artistic per se, they're meant to be cheap thrills seen at midnight. And the women characters are often at the receiving end of the exploitative stick. Films like Women in Cages, The Big Bird Cage, The Big Dollhouse often showed women in exploitatively sexual situations, scantily clad, being attacked or attacking other women for some reason. Even the movies extolled as feminist, such as 1978's I Spit on Your Grave, never has the female character actually end up on top. They're often victims of long, gratuitous and voyeuristic assault and humiliation, and any quote-unquote female empowerment that comes after is too little too late and pretty easily undone by the gaze of the movie anyway. They only ever commit violence while dressed in tiny dresses, their cleavage out, in their underwear, and any revenge they achieve is only enacted after they've been brutalized on screen. That's not to say that there's anything wrong with a woman being sexual or a movie having eroticism in it, but when the writing and filmmaking does nothing to tell you anything more about these women other than they hot and they about to get got, you know what this movie's about and who the target audience is.
Innocent young girls held in cruel bondage. You'll meet them all in Women in Cages, in color, rated R.
Where do you want to be buried, nigga? And it's Miss Nigger to you.
Meet the girls of the Big Bird Cage, punished by the terrible machine that maims tender bodies.
Come on, guys. Nobody wants this.
Death Proof's women are rich, well-rounded characters talking about everything from music to their careers to their varied interests, including men and cars. And even though staples of exploitation movies make their way into the film, there's a certain love and care with the way they're handled that contributes to the artistry of the genre and elevating it to something worth studying and appreciating. The long and tense chase of the first murder, followed by the quick repeated look at how each woman is killed, both is an ode to the gratuitous violence in genre movies but also celebrates the artistry of creating blood and guts and severed limbs on camera. The film also explores different visual styles as the story progresses, leaving subtle and not so subtle hints to which direction our narrative is going. In the first half, we get a sort of retro timelessness. The sets, the costumes, the old movie film grain make us feel like this is 100% an authentic 80s movie. But then there are references to present day technology and events that place us sort of in the 2000s as well, signaling that this is a new take on an old formula and that not everything might be as it seems. With a brief black and white interlude to signify the coming change, the second half of the movie is in full HD. Where the first half was almost as if it's from the perspective of our killer. He is an ominous and looming figure boasting about his glory days as a stuntman in classic TV shows and movies. The look of the film here backs him up and allows him to revel in his nostalgia. But once the truth of his perversion is revealed, the film moves to high definition reality as if to show us what he really is like. He is overtly and repeatedly identified as a creep and a perv, and his comeuppance in the final act of the movie is especially delicious. The final car chase scene sees a major turning of the tables, and the enjoyable but tense build-up so far has a huge release of fun and catharsis, where we get to revel in these badass women beat the ever-living shit out of this sick bastard, all the while making jeers and jokes that are honestly so funny that I've been quoting Tracie to this day.
Oh, you know I can't let you go without tapping that ass. Kim? More! Kim? Time!
The 100% practical final sequence is jaw-droppingly beautiful, tense, and this is important, entirely comprehensible. In an era where CGI car chases are inundated with quick cuts, camera shake, dust to the point where you have no idea what's going on, this movie gives you insanely cinematic action, all the while never leaving you confused as to where you are in the sequence. From Zoe Bell being strapped to the hood of the car, followed by the high-speed demolition derby as Kim taps that ass, the action cements Tarantino as a master of the genre. Death Proof is not for everyone, and that's okay. But if you're a movie history lover, it's definitely worth a shot. It's a big fat ode to cinema, a loving tribute to a building block of cinema culture, and worth appreciating. Stylistically, Tarantino did a purposeful remake of that era of filmmaking with the long shots, the editing mistakes and film grain, the deliberately wordy dialogue, which I will maintain is still incredibly engaging, which is then backed up with quality action sequences. In comparison, Planet Terror is action-packed and uses modern filmmaking techniques and editing to give us the Grindhouse film that the posters always promised but never delivered. Death Proof, on the other hand, is a deliberate slow burn that leads up to a pounding action-packed climax, where the ladies that have been taken advantage of throughout these years of cinema finally get their victory, and they keep their clothes on.